All right. Welcome to the Viking Age podcast. I'm your host, Adam Patrick. I'm the editor and lead writer for thevikingage.com, where we cover the Minnesota Vikings. And welcoming back to the show, my usual co-host is Chris Schad, who writes for us here at the Viking Age, as well as Bring Me the News and Zone coverage. Before we start today's show, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to our channel and like the video. And then, of course, follow the Viking Age on Twitter and Facebook. And the audio version of this podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, wherever you get your podcasts. So I have no little game or trivia or anything today because we got some interesting stuff to talk about. So first off, Adam Thielen, don't know if you heard of him, used to play for the Vikings.
Heard he's from Minnesota.
Around there, Detroit like,
Yeah.
so it's kind of confusing because it's
Yep.
Detroit and but yeah.
Do you know where he went to school?
MSU, Michigan State, is that right?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe
All right.
Mankato.
All right. The stick is up. Adam Thielen has found a new home outside of Minnesota. For the first time in his life, he will be playing football outside the state of Minnesota. Oh, for a team outside the state of Minnesota. He's obviously played outside the state of Minnesota. Thielen has signed with the Carolina Panthers. And according to multiple reports, he and the Panthers have agreed to a 3-year contract worth $25 million. It might seem like a big contract, maybe from first glance for a guy his age and his caliber right now. But if you check out some of the details, it's really more like a 2-year contract around 14, 16 million. So it's not too crazy. Thielen, though, was scheduled to earn more than $13 million from the Vikings in 2023, but now he'll be making less and joining a team that finished last season with a 7-10 record. But that's not all, because today, during an appearance on the Pat McAfee show, Adam Thielen said, quote, "I feel like there's a real chance to win a Super Bowl with the Panthers, and that Carolina adding Andy Dalton this offseason was a, quote, huge reason why he signed with the Panthers." Okay. What does Thielen signing with the Panthers say about his intentions for the 2023 season?
I think it justifies what we've been saying on here for the past year, at least I have, in that Thielen is not this lovable team guy that people have made him out to be the last couple of years. I mean, I've mentioned repeatedly the Minnesota Wild situation where you had Zach Parise and you had Ryan Suter. They were highly paid guys. Suter was from Wisconsin, Parise was from Minnesota, and just kind of, for lack of a better word, they took advantage of their situation, knowing, hey, I kind of have this card as these franchise saviors. So they were having practices over in Edina, even though people lived over in St. Paul and a whole bunch of other stuff. Like signing with Carolina, like if he went and he signed with the Chiefs or even like the Jets, I kind of would have been like, okay, whatever. He's trying to get a Super Bowl.
Cowboys were interested, apparently.
Yeah. He wasn't mad about the salary either. No. Like, because he's only, I bet you the Vikings pay cut was probably, I don't think the Vikings would have been like, we want you to play for $5 million. Like that. I don't think that happened.
No.
I think that Thielen genuinely was unhappy with his role here and wanted to get his stats. Because if he signed with somebody like Kansas City or New York or somewhere else, there's a chance that, there's number one weapons there. He talked about, I believe it was Dallas and Denver specifically.
Yeah.
Dallas, you have I guess they traded for Brandon Cooks because they didn't get Thielen. But you have CeeDee Lamb there. CeeDee Lamb's probably going to get more targets.
Yeah.
Denver. Denver, people like Jerry Jeudy. I don't. Like Cortland Sutton's.
No, I think they're going to run the ball more because Sean Payton's been loading up on like running backs and offensive linemen. So
yeah, like I think both of those things. He would not have been the number one weapon in either of those destinations. He is number one with a bullet in Carolina because they don't have anybody. Terrace Marshall has not turned out since coming out of the draft a couple years ago. I saw a tweet. It was like, look at what the Panthers are doing. They're getting Miles Sanders and Hayden Hurst and like everybody else. And I think somebody commented, you couldn't get arrested with these weapons at an airport. Like, I don't know. It just it feels like such a farce to me because Thielen's on here being like, yeah, I'm excited and we can win a Super Bowl and I'm excited. Like, dude, did you watch the game against Andy Dalton or were you just busy pouting on the sideline because you weren't getting the ball? Like, I don't know, man. I've said it. I believe I said this last week. He's one of the greatest Vikings of all time, one of the greatest origin stories of all time. But I think some of the way the people just enabled him, enabled his family members to be bigger than they really are. I think it eventually became a problem. And I think, it also gets back to what I've been saying about this whole team culture thing. Like, it's nothing against Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell. It's against the players who 2 years ago were all for one and one for me as Mike Zimmer was getting thrown under the bus and Kevin O'Connell came in. Now they win 13 games. They win the NFC North. They've gone back to that where it's like, where's mine? Where's mine? Where's mine? And part of that's a natural thing for a football player, but I don't know. Like, some people go online too and be like, oh, Stephon Diggs liked his tweet. Yeah, he's going to be in the same spot. Dude, he's in the same spot that Thielen was. That same week where Diggs went off in 2019, Thielen said the same damn thing
in the locker room.
The only difference was Thielen showed up for practice.
Yeah.
Like, and then, Thielen was on Kirk Cousins' show 2 days later going like, I'm sorry, Kirk. I didn't mean to
Kirk did it to him.
Give me the ball. Please, Kirk.
Kirk apologized to him.
Please, Kirk. Oh. Sorry. Got a little into that, but yes.
No, get it all out because this might be one of the last times we talk about Adam Thielen. Probably not. But I think there's a line between being optimistic about a team you're joining and you're excited and everything, and then there's like delusion. And I think he's kind of teetering on that delusion line where it's like, okay, I get you're excited. Now, he didn't say we're going to win the Super Bowl next year. So he could be like, in a couple of years, I think this team is capable of getting the Super Bowl, which they could be because they have a bunch of young pieces. Frank Reich is a pretty good coach.
That's debatable.
I said pretty good.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean it. Yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't really given the best tools in Indianapolis. A lot of the quarterback moves were kind of out of his control and more ownership decisions. So I wouldn't put a lot of blame on Frank Reich. I think he's a good offensive coach. There's a reason why he was hired again immediately. So I think they've got that going for him. It's funny that Thielen picked the Panthers because, they really have no receivers. They just added Miles Sanders and Hayden Hurst or whatever. But they have what? You mentioned Terrace Marshall. They've got Laviska Shenault. I think Shi Smith. Like, Thielen is above and beyond the best. And, of course, he's, talking about how he's feeling the best shape of his life or whatever, things like that. So he's going to come in and I'm sure he'll do well at first, but he's been hurt like the last 3 years. He's been banged up, and he did play all 17 games this year, but he was not completely healthy. He hurt himself earlier in the year, and he wasn't really the same. He's getting older, so his body's going to take longer to heal. But yeah, like, it's weird. But would you say, I don't know, his exit is kind of similar. You looked at the past, some of his heroes, Chris Carter and Randy Moss, they didn't really have the greatest exits from Minnesota either.
Mm-hmm.
I would say his was probably better than was Carter's. I don't think Carter's was like malicious or anything.
I think he was a little upset, but I mean,
yeah, he probably wanted more money. The Vikings were like, "You're old. We got to get rid of you." And he went to the Dolphins, and the Vikings made the correct decision because he did nothing. And then Randy Moss, that was a mistake because they traded him way too early. But then the second time, getting rid of him, that didn't go too well either. So, Percy Harvin, Stephon, the list goes on. Like, wide receivers typically don't have the best exits from teams because they always want the ball. Like, that's their job. They always want the ball. They're probably never satisfied. It's very rare for them to be like, yep, I'm 32, so I should only be getting 40 catches a year, and I'm going to be perfectly happy with that because we're going to win 14 games, 15 games, and we're going to be good. No. receivers do not care about that. Typically, they do not. This is just another example, and he's got smiles on his faces and everything, but it's very clear that he wanted to go somewhere where he would be the number 1 or number 2 option in an offense, and if that's what he wants, fine. He's at the end of his career. He can pick whatever he wants to do. He's been to the playoffs before. Obviously, he thinks they can get to the Super Bowl, so maybe that can happen. Probably not. But yeah, he's getting what he wanted, and it's very clear more and more as you look at the contract and you look at like the stuff he said back in February or on the Super Bowl, like, "Oh, I want to be a Viking for life, but I want to be able to prove, that I can still play at a high level." And it's like, which one do you want? Because you can't have both.
Do you think there was some beef between him and Kevin O'Connell?
I don't know if it was beef or more just O'Connell being like, "Hey, dude, we need someone who can get open, and you can't get open anymore. So I'm not going to just trot you on the field because you've been here for 10 years. Like, I got a job to do. We need to win games, and right now you're not the best option." That's why they traded for TJ Hawkinson. Like, Thielen was there. He was healthy. He wasn't getting open. And so they traded for Hawkinson, and Thielen's targets went down because Hawkinson was a better option.
The one thing that I would point to kind of support your argument, look at the Giants game, the one where Thielen runs the wrong route on.
Right.
And I think a lot of people posted a picture of like O'Connell and Justin Jefferson, just like, O'Connell's eyes lighting up, like talking to Justin Jefferson or whatever. And they switched to Thielen and Kevin O'Connell. Thielen won't even look at him. Like he's just, and part of it was probably because, hey, I screwed up. I ran the wrong route. I get mad when I screwed up. I
Right.
totally get it.
I don't need you to tell me that I screwed up because I already know that.
Right. But, I just didn't seem like it was all kumbaya there. So, I mean, none of this is really, great. And, as wrestling fans, I would like to wish Mr. Thielen the best on his future endeavors in Carolina. So,
is he going to show up in Japan next year?
Japan. It's Adam Thielen's music. By God, what is he doing here?
Real quick,
or just sitting in the crowd, just like
he's got a ticket
watching.
Yeah, he bought a ticket. He bought a ticket to the show. He's a spectator.
I saw an awesome tweet like a couple years ago, and it said that wrestling or free agent signings would be a lot more awesome if they just showed up just like wrestlers do when they like
on the
new
Raw
company.
Like the Raw after WrestleMania, when like there's so many different like surprises and stuff, and it's music, and everyone's just like
imagine like opening day, New York Jets, like they're all lining up for the thing, and like Zach Wilson's out there, and all of a sudden like the lights go out, and like there's a light at the tunnel, and it's like all hallucinogenic colors and stuff, and Aaron Rodgers comes out. Everybody's just losing their minds, like, oh my God, Aaron Rodgers is here. The rumors are true.
You would have John Morrison's music or Dude Love's music, probably.
Yes.
Real quick before we get off the topic of Thielen, sadly, over under 70 catches for Thielen in 2023. I think that's what he had this year.
He's certainly going to get the targets. I mean, the Panthers don't even have draft picks to get a receiver after trading up, although they might trade back Sonny Weaver Jr. style now, apparently.
Oh, yeah.
Shoot, I'll go over. I think he'll be he'll do I'll mention another sport again. It is basketball season. He'll do the Kevin Love thing where he'll just have like monster numbers, but his team just sucks. Like,
oh, that's Kevin Love, not somebody else who plays for the Vikings.
I could have went Vikings on that, huh? Yeah.
Well, if you go over, I'll just take the under, just because. I don't know. I don't think he says he's fine. He says he's good or whatever, but like, you still got to get open, and he struggled with that last year. Like, hurt or not, you should be able to get open. And I know like his agent and stuff have come out and been like, well, you guys don't know like the details of everything, like what he was asked to do on each play and everything, if he was like one of the options. And it's like, listen, we know there's plenty of evidence. If he was open last season, Kirk Cousins would have found him.
Yeah.
Because he's one of his favorite targets since he's been with the Vikings. So let's not be like, oh, he was taken out of the play and everything. It's like, no, if he was open, he would have got the ball. So, yeah, I'll go under just because, just play devil's advocate, I guess. Moving on to the next topic, which is something I talked about with actually Luke Braun a couple weeks ago when you were elsewhere. It is Lamar Jackson, who had the non-exclusive franchise tag placed on him a couple weeks ago, which means that the Ravens, they have his rights right now or whatever, and I think he accounts for $32.4 million on the cap. But other teams can present an offer to Lamar, and then the Ravens have the right to match it. But if they don't match it, then they get 2 first-round picks from whatever team gets that winning bid. So far, I think no offers have been made, but I think the Ravens have until July 17th to negotiate a long-term deal with Jackson, and then he has until like week 11 in the season to sign his tender. So he doesn't have to sign it anytime soon if he doesn't want to. But I guess recently on an episode of SportsCenter, ESPN's Jeremy Fowler labeled the Vikings as a, quote, wild card to land Lamar Jackson this year just because Kirk Cousins is in his final year of the contract. And they might be looking to go in a different direction with the quarterback. So I guess maybe on like a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the most, how reckless would you say this speculation is from Fowler?
I'd say, well, I think it's educated because he's plugged in. Like, he's very similar to Schefter. Like, I heard Scornor talking about this a little bit, and it's true.
He covered the Vikings.
Yeah, exactly. He used to be with the Pioneer Press. So, I mean, that's basically what I'm getting at. I don't think this is like off the wall. And I think that he's just stating kind of a fact about the Vikings right now, that when it comes to the quarterback position, they have plenty of options and they're going to do their homework. Remember this time last year, or maybe it was a little bit sooner, the Vikings were tied to Deshaun Watson for a minute. And, I mean, they're looking at all avenues. And I like that. I like the fact that they're not going to just say no. They're going to dig into it, see what they need to do. And if Lamar Jackson is an option, if they want to pursue it, they should. I mean, that's kind of it. I mean, I've seen takes the last couple of days. I know Pete Bursich was online saying, well, Lamar's not accurate. Okay. Well, he completed 66% of his passes. I believe it was 66.1. I believe Kirk Cousins' career completion percentage is 66.8. So that's career high for Jackson. Jackson has also completed 64.2% of his passes each of the last 2 seasons. And I believe last year's average was like 64.7 or 8. It was somewhere in that range. It was 64 or something. Last year it went down, but his number 1 receiver was also Demarcus Robinson. Now, Jackson's not as good of a deep passer as Cousins, which might be what Bursich was talking about, but I mean,
think so. I don't want to give
I don't trust Bursich to dig that deep, because I did look it up and I was like, what's his adjusted? And like, okay, Kirk's like in the 40s and 50s. Or I think around like, upper 40s, 50s in adjusted completion percentage.
So does he not think Josh Allen's good because he has a lower completion percentage than Lamar Jackson?
Well, I have my own theory on why some people don't want Jackson as quarterback, but I probably shouldn't bring it up right now.
I think people can figure it out.
Yeah. Sounds about white.
Yeah.
Here's what I'll say about Jackson. And it would be fun. It would be a blast. He's a former MVP. Yeah. He's, a superstar. Like Kirk Cousins. A lot of people look at Kirk Cousins and be like, what do you want else from Kirk Cousins? I mean, he is literally a quarterback Ken doll, because people just want to dress him up and have him be something that he's not. Oh, we're going to throw chains on Kirk Cousins. He's just like Joe Burrow. Oh, he's singing with Kelly Clarkson. See, Kirk can be funny. And Kirk's not a bad guy. I have no ill will towards the human being. I just know that you can do better than Kirk Cousins as your quarterback. And some people will also shoot back and be like, well, I looked up on StatHead and his numbers say that when he has mac and cheese before a game, he's got the highest passer rating in NFL history or whatever it is. Okay, that's fine. Lamar Jackson can make up for more flaws than Kirk Cousins can. And when you are paying a quarterback that much money, that has kind of some value to it. The problem here is that the Vikings do not have the infrastructure to add a $50 million quarterback. They could do it. It would be fun. I mean, Lamar Jackson to Justin Jefferson would be a freaking blast. But, look at all the holes the Vikings have. And you can't fill it with bargain bin free agent signings and the draft. You have to go get talent.
Yep.
And, I look at a team like the perfect situation to drop Lamar Jackson into would be the New York Jets right now. They have a team that is full of cheap talent. They got Garrett Wilson. They got Elijah Moore. They got Breece Hall in the backfield. Their defense is filled with studs. A lot of them are on rookie deals. That's why they're going after Aaron Rodgers, because they know, okay, $50 million for Aaron Rodgers, plop him in. Let's just see what happens. They should be going for Lamar Jackson, especially if Green Bay wants the Stafford deal like it's being rumored. Because, I mean, you sign him, you get 2 firsts, and, yeah, you got your quarterback. Yep. The other problem with this is you need to think of a contract that is so crazy the Ravens would go, yeah, we're not doing that.
Right.
Like, you need poison pill, basically, is what you need. And poison pill is illegal now after the Vikings did it, which I wish it wasn't, because it would have been, I mean, in today's NFL, it would have been freaking crazy, right? But, yeah, I just, it would be fun. Just now is not the time to get Lamar Jackson on the Vikings.
No, I understand why. I think his wild card comment came from an executive or whatever that he talked to. So it wasn't really like his thoughts. So more, he talked to executives, which they probably weren't as familiar with the Vikings financial situation and their lack of draft picks and their holes on their roster. So they're just looking at Kirk Cousins and being like, oh, he's got a year left in his contract. They're going to need a new quarterback. Why don't they just go after Lamar Jackson? He's right there. But yeah, like you said, they're not really in shape to do that because, one, you're going to give up 2 first-round picks, which is fine for Jackson. You already know what you're getting out of him. I have no problem with that, giving up those. But then, you're paying at least $45 million a year, because that's what the top quarterbacks are getting in the NFL. I think there's 5 that are making an average of $45 million a year. So he's going to want at least that. At the very least, 45. Probably going to want more. So then you're paying that. And then 2024, you're still paying Kirk Cousins, whether he's there or not, because he's got a 28.6 dead cap, whatever. So you got to account for that no matter what. So right there, I'm sure they could, if they sign Lamar or whatever, they could figure out a way to lower his cap hit for 2024 so you wouldn't be paying 60, 80 million to 2 quarterbacks, one that's not even there. But still, that's a lot of work. And then you got to sign Justin Jefferson to an extension, Christian Darrisaw to an extension. Both of their prices continue to go up as more players sign extensions. They're just not, and they have the giving up 2 firsts. They're not in the shape to do that. They barely have enough draft picks this year to add talent to their roster. So it would be a lot of fun. I wrote about this yesterday, and my first sentence was it's safe to say the majority of people who've played Madden, Vikings fans, have likely traded for Lamar Jackson at some point in their time playing Madden. But in the real world, can't really do that because it's just you got to deal with the cap and a bunch of other stuff. And he's missed 10 games in the last 2 years. Now this year, a little debatable. Did he miss more because he didn't want to hurt his chances of getting paid this year? That's up for debate because the Ravens were like, "Hey, dude, we're in the playoffs," and he's like, "Cool."
Yeah.
So, but there's that. He's missed 10 games, and you can't ignore that. And his running style puts him in harm's way a lot more than it would, a pocket quarterback. I think he averages 10 carries a game in his career, so that's a lot more chances of getting hurt. And he wants fully guaranteed money. So you're going to give this guy fully guaranteed money, and he's going to miss half the season? That doesn't go along with like. I know Kwesi Adofo-Mensah comes from Wall Street and he makes risky moves or whatever, but that seems a little too risky even for somebody like him who's like, I think he's always looking for more stuff that's like the risk. You buy low and take the risk on someone who might not already be good, and take the risk on them ending up good on your team. And those are the type of risks I think he likes to take, not the ones where it's like he's already been good, but he might be on the way down. So yeah, I just don't think they're in a position to go after someone like Lamar Jackson. I would love it.
And the
But
Athletics,
it's just
Alec
not doesn't
Lewis.
seem like possible. Yeah.
Well, in the Athletics, Alec Lewis mentioned a quote from Kwesi at the combine where he said, the importance of having the quarterback developed in the culture or whatever. It doesn't seem like they want to just easy bake this thing. They want to find a guy that they can develop. And I think, I just don't see how that's going to happen this year with that lack of draft capital. Like, we could talk about them trading up for Anthony Richardson or Will Levis all we want, but I mean, I just don't think it's realistic.
Oh, I don't know. Did you see Phil Simms' rankings today? He put out his college rankings. Those are always entertaining.
What is Kellen Mond 101 again or what?
No. I want to say Hendon Hooker he has him by tiers. He's got 4 tiers, I think. And he has Hendon Hooker in the second tier. There's 2 players per tier. So Hendon Hooker's in the top 4. And then
if the Vikings draft Hendon Hooker, tune into the show, kids.
Listen.
Tune into the show.
But you should feel confident in this group drafting him over the previous group. If Spielman was the guy drafting him, I would be worried. But I'm not.
I don't care. I don't care who's drafting. I don't care if you have Bill Walsh or Sean McVay or whoever drafting Hendon Hooker. The dude is 25 years old. He'll be 26 when the playoffs start next year.
What if they get him in the 3rd round?
No, you need other things than a quarter. Don't do this stupid like to draft and develop a quarterback shit. Like even Kellen Mond, yeah, there were flaws, but you know what? He was young enough where you could have him sit. Like if you draft Hendon Hooker, he's going to sit behind Kirk Cousins for a year. And then he's going to be 26 and 27 in the playoffs. Did you like Brandon Whedon too? No. Like, I don't know. Chad Hutchinson is somewhere out there. Maybe we should see if he's draft eligible.
Who's the guy? Oh, Taysom Hill too. Wasn't he like 27?
Stetson Bennett?
Well, no, I'm saying Taysom Hill.
Isn't Stetson Bennett like 29 too?
He's 26.
Yeah, he's 26.
He was like a 5th-year senior, 6th-year senior, whatever.
Everybody's like, look at this walk-on. He's so good. Well, yeah, A, he's at Georgia, so there's studs everywhere. And B, he's like 8 years old. Like he's like the dude that
he's a savvy vet in college.
Do you know what a Texas red shirt is?
No.
So apparently it happens in Texas where they just see like this super, but they want to like
keep him longer,
set up their high school, come back a grade, like second grade or something.
Yeah.
That's why you have like Billy Bob, the fullback, like doing keg stands on the sideline, just like, hey, Billy, you in? All right, I'm in, coach. Let's go.
Yeah. I think he had the last one in tier 4. He had Will Levis and Dorian Thompson-Robinson in the same tier. So Vikings do not follow Phil Simms' quarterback ranking.
Chris Simms, you mean?
Both don't follow either of them.
Wait, are you talking Phil
I'm
Simms?
talking about I'm talking about Chris. But Chris you're right.
Simms.
But I wouldn't follow Phil Simms' advice either. He doesn't really have that great of a track record either.
This is true.
So yeah, just Lamar Jackson. I just don't. It wouldn't even be smart for them to go after him, would it? Like it would put them even in a bigger hole than they already now with Kirk Cousins. I mean, I guess if it pays off and he helps you win a Super Bowl, then yeah, it's fine. But like down the road, you're gonna have to probably get rid of guys like T.J. Hawkinson, and you might not be able to sign Christian Darrisaw. I would like to think Justin Jefferson would stick around, but there's chatter that receivers don't really like to play with Lamar Jackson because he runs the ball all the time. I don't know if that would be the case with Justin Jefferson, but I think I heard that from some clip today or whatever, that receivers don't really like to play with Jackson because likes to run the ball, but he can also get them the ball too. It's just the chances are very slim, and if anything would happen, it would have to happen in the summertime after June 1st because the Vikings would have massive loss of cap space if they got rid of Kirk Cousins by releasing or trading him before June 1st. I believe they would have to they would lose $48 million in cap space if they released him before June 1st, and they would lose $38 million if they traded him. So that's not going to happen anytime soon. But I guess it's something to keep an eye on. But still, it doesn't seem like the direction that they're heading in is going after someone like Lamar Jackson.
I think the resolution to that will come at draft time because some team's going to realize they can't get a quarterback and they're not going to be able to trade up.
Yep.
And then they're going to really kick the tires on him. And maybe at that point he signs an offer sheet. And like I said, I mean, the Ravens, if it's anywhere sensible, they're just going to say, yeah, sure. But
if it's like 55, then they're going to be like, have fun. Go for it. Get your money, kid. Because we're not going to get crippled by that contract. So
if the Vikings sign Lamar to a $55 million contract, I'm going to have some questions.
Hey, Red McCombs would, but rest in peace. He's not
Rep Bud.
The late Red McCombs. I'll just leave it at that. Moving on to the last topic, just has to do with the Vikings offseason because I was just sitting around yesterday. I'm thinking what is the Vikings plan? What are they doing? Because they got rid of notable guys. They got rid of Thielen, Kendricks, moved on from Peterson, Tomlinson. They signed some notable free agents, Byron Murphy, Marcus Davenport. Say what you will about Josh Oliver and Dean Lowry, but those are fun, I guess. But then they've re-signed a bunch of their players. Like they had 16 free agents heading into free agency. They've re-signed 7 of them, including Garrett Bradbury, Greg Joseph, the big domino, Alexander Madison. I'm gonna start calling him that now.
Not to be confused with the real deal, Shamar Stephen.
Yeah, and they brought back Ali Udo. It's like they're just bringing the band back. So, like, my question to you is, what are all these moves? Are they going to end up finishing in the middle of the pack again next season? Is basically what I'm asking. And then, is that strategy
Jeff Fisher special?
Is that strategy something that they should continue to execute, or should they just be like, we're either going to be a top contender or we're going to be at the bottom, because they've been in the middle for a very long time and just nothing's happening.
This could be so here's what they're doing. I think not that I have like all the answers, but
you don't
remember. Yeah, I don't, unfortunately. Remember when like Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi were hired? They got 4-year contracts. Everybody's like, that's a little short, right?
Yep.
So they don't have that long-term security. I don't know what Ryan Poles got in Chicago, for example. So like if he got like a 5, 6, 7-year deal, so I mean 6-year deal, it's like, all right, I'm going to blow this up and go long-term with it because I have job security, which doesn't really exist in the NFL. But you're more inclined to do that. Somebody like Kwesi is probably like, shoot, I got 4 years. If this thing tanks after 3, I might get fired. So what is he? I mean, I like what he's doing. This is very, I'm wearing the hat out of coincidence. Also, it's very cold here. I'm sick of the snow and opening days in 10 days.
It's cold in the north.
It is cold in the north. But they're looking for guys that can save a little bit of money, get that cap hit, and whatever happens in 2023 happens. They're going to try and win because they have to because of their contract situation, but they're also going to set themselves up for the future where they can just go hard in 2024. I think I looked on Over the Cap before I came on here. They have $58 million in cap space going into next year. That's before they've done anything with Zadarius Smith or Dalvin Cook. I don't know what's going on there. You have to look at the NFC North and go, this is a winnable division. So like, what do you
I don't know. The Lions are loading up.
And they are, but I mean, they could also come out and Dan Campbell could just be like hungover one day and just be like, "Oh, guys, I don't know what I'm doing.
It's the Lions.
Is that the wave? Holy shit, man! Look at the wave." We don't know. I love Dan Campbell, but I mean, it's the Lions. We don't. I love what they're doing, but again, it's the Lions. The Bears are probably going to suck. The Packers, I mean, is Jordan Love good? Is the rest of that team? Better question: is the rest of that team good? Because Jordan Love could be good, but the rest of the team could suck. And then, you're paying the quarterback in the middle.
So
they lost Randall Cobb. That's Aaron Rodgers' list. It's like Chris Jericho's like list of 1,004 holds, but like every other one is Randall Cobb. Yeah. So I mean, signing Marcus Davenport as an example. They signed him because he's got good pressure numbers, doesn't have the sack totals, but that pressure totals kind of the same as Zadarius Smith. So you get and I mean, these are all moves you look at them and you go, okay, they could turn out. And like if the Vikings bomb, which they could because their schedule is tough, they can wind up in 2024. I mean, I don't think this team's going to win 13 games. They're not going to win the Super Bowl.
No.
So, but I mean, the Vikings are also going to try and put together a competitive team. And it's not like they're signing guys who are washed. You know what I mean? Like Marcus Davenport, I think is 26, 27 years old. And if he blows up and has a good season, you have the cap space to be like, hey, we like you long-term. Here's a contract. Like Byron Murphy Jr., 2-year deal for $11 million. That's a solid deal there too. Like these aren't guys that are just 2023 centric. These are guys that could be pieces down the road for about 3 or 4 years. And that's the window that Kwesi is trying to create. So it's not going to mean great things and it's not going to propel him to a Super Bowl this year, but I'm more excited in what Kwesi is doing 2024, 2025. Now, if he just pulls the same shit, then we can have this conversation. But I mean, right now I'm just kind of okay. Let Kwesi cook. Hashtag it.
Yeah, that's what I'm just trying to figure out. Because like, are you trying to build a team that wins the NFC North again and wins a playoff game, and then what? And then what do you do after that? Because Kirk Cousins, it looks like you're trying to move on from him, and then are you going to start over with a rookie quarterback and then take a step back and then try and move forward a year after two after that? Like, I'm just not sure what they're doing. I'm sure we'll find out more in the draft, probably, but like, I don't know what their goal is. And then like, I want to know too, like, what if they miss the playoffs next year? Then what do they do? Is that when they unload everything and start from scratch, or
But I don't think the Vikings need to do that.
No.
They already have some pieces that are foundational. Like they have the left tackle, Christian Darrisaw. They have the wide receiver. I mean, this draft's going to be really important, man, as far as loading up the roster. They got to find some impact talents. The problem is when you have a quarterback like Kirk Cousins, you're basically trying to find the Justin Jefferson of whatever position you're drafting. Like we need the Justin Jefferson of right guards. There's not too many out there.
Well, yeah, and they don't need to break everything down, but like if they miss the playoffs next year and you look at your roster and you're like, would we be better off keeping guys like Hawkinson and Darrisaw and Jefferson, or unloading them and getting more picks and then being able to build a better roster with these guys gone? Like,
if they miss the playoffs, they'll have a high draft pick, won't they?
Depends.
And if next year's class is as loaded as that quarterback as it seems, they'll have a good chance of getting one, or they have enough picks in the future they can trade up for them.
Knowing them, they would miss the playoffs like just slightly and
7
get
and 9,
pick 17.
So
I don't know. I just would like to know what they're doing, because like they'll sign guys like Byron Murphy and Marcus Davenport, and those are exciting. Those are like, you're like, okay, they're trying to be better, trying to improve their roster. Because I mean, it's really hard not to try and improve your defense when they were terrible last year. But still, like, I just don't know what they're doing. I don't know what the strategy is, because I think the Wilfs, I think that comes down to them too. Like, I think they're afraid of, and they've kind of made some of the fan base like this too. Like, if you trade someone like Kirk Cousins, or you get rid of somebody like that, people are like, we're going to be the Jets for like 10 years. And it's like, no, the Jets are the Jets because they've been that way for a long time. Like look at a team like the Bengals. The Bengals were like a laughing stock for 20 years. They got the right head coach in Marvin Lewis. Obviously, they didn't do a whole lot, but he turned that franchise around, and they became a much better franchise. Then they landed Joe Burrow, and they become an even better franchise. So, like, people should start looking at examples like that instead of being like, well, what if we become like the Jets or the Texans? And it's like, no. Like, the Vikings are a well-run organization. Look at their facilities and everything. Look at their stadium. Like, they want to be good. They set their players up to succeed. They have a good coach, got a good GM. So, like, there's not a whole lot of reason to think that they're going to just collapse if they get rid of a couple guys that have been there for a while, and they might have to be bad for a year or two. So I don't know. I was confused. I'm like, what? Okay, I'm glad they're making these moves, but like, what's this going to amount to? Are they okay? They're going to win. Maybe they win the NFC North. Maybe they win a playoff game. Are they going to win the Super Bowl? Probably not. Are they going to be terrible and get a top 5 pick? Probably not. So like they're just in that middle ground again, and I don't know. Maybe I'm getting tired of it. Maybe I'm just like, can we just do something to get out of this treading water area, because it feels like they've been there for so long.
Yeah,
it feels like the Bengals under Marvin Lewis, where it's like, hooray, we made the playoffs again, but doesn't mean anything because we're not going to go anywhere. And maybe people are, you can go on a run, just get in the tournament, but like that doesn't really work now. You basically got to be the number 1 seed in the playoffs to do anything. Number 1 and number 2. I don't know. That's all I got. I don't know. They're just stuck. I feel like they're stuck. And
we're in the same spot we were in last offseason.
Right.
I don't know. I see potential for something different, and for me, that gives me hope. Like if it were
this year or next year?
Next year.
Okay.
I mean, to me, do I want to see the Vikings win this year? Of course I do.
Yeah.
But if they lose, like I see the sunny side up in losing. Okay. You have a lot of pieces. Like I said, you have some cornerstones. And I mean, if things go really bad, and they could go the exact opposite way they did and lose like 8 fourth quarter games, and Kirk can't make the comeback because he's like checking down on 4th and 3 or whatever. And then you're like, oh, we're picking 6th in a draft class with like 4 or 5 good quarterback prospects.
And they can always trade up.
I have to take one.
Yeah, they can trade up too.
Yeah.
But they do have a tough schedule next year. They do have to go on the road and play that Super Bowl contending team, the Carolina Panthers. So that'll be a tough one for the Vikings to overcome for sure.
And don't forget that the Chiefs were in the divisional round the year before selecting Patrick Mahomes.
They were.
So even if they do make, like if they win the division at 9-8 and they go in the playoffs and they get smoked, there's not an excuse to, oh, well, we couldn't trade up or whatever. No, there's a way. If you like a guy, go get him.
And they
could still that's what this regime is willing to do.
They can still have some moves up their sleeve too. Like there's been some chatter that Danielle Hunter could be available for trade, and they could get probably a nice return package for him because he's still young enough and productive enough where they could get maybe like a 2nd round pick. I think a first is probably stretching it, but a 2nd round pick would be great if you can get that for Danielle Hunter right now. But yeah, you do mention that the Chiefs did trade for Mahomes when they were in the divisional round, which is encouraging to hear because I think I'm just frustrated. I'm like, what are they doing? They're just every year. It's like it was worse with Zimmer because like they wouldn't make the playoffs, but then they wouldn't be bad enough to get a good draft pick, and they would still be like 15th or 14th, and it's like, okay, if you're not going to make the playoffs, at least just be terrible, and get a better draft pick. But they didn't want to do that. Mike Zimmer was there to win games, not set records. So that'll be it for today. There was one other thing. I think I saw the Vikings have had chatter or whatever with free agent wide receiver Mecole Hardman, formerly of the Chiefs. I think that's from Darren Wolfson. So that's interesting, I guess. I think he ran a 4.3 in the combine a couple years ago.
He's not your Cole. He's me, Cole.
So that's interesting, I guess, to keep an eye on. That'll be he's in the the spectrum, I guess, of all the players that are signing, being like 25-ish, good athleticism, maybe high upside. So something to keep an eye on for the future. Maybe we'll talk about it on Thursday because we're in the second week of free agency, and who knows what could happen. But that'll do it for us today. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to our channel, like this video. Remember to follow the Viking Age on Twitter and Facebook. And the audio version of this podcast will be available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeart, wherever you get your podcasts. So until next time, Chris and I will talk to you later.